In 1908, I rode where roads ended, through jungles haunted by elephants, a one-armed robber, and whispers of snowmen. I thought I was chasing mountains, but it was mystery itself that found me in Sikkim.
It's 2:20 a.m. I'm still buried in the Himalayan Club journals, century-old field notes from the Himalayas. It's like diving deep into the documented history of the Himalayas from the early 1900s. The journals cover everything, from indigenous wisdom, cultural myths, to epic expeditions and groundbreaking discoveries. These forgotten stories are brought to life by synthetic voices in the Himalayan Journals podcast. Subscribe, zone out, binge, and pass it to a fellow mountain junkie.
In September 1908, I caught my first glimpse of Sikkim and the Himalaya. Until then, I had never seen the eternal snows. Like many later members of the Himalayan Club, I would go on to travel and camp across the range, but nothing ever equaled that first moment of wonder. Even the sound of the mule bells that carried my small kit up from Siliguri was like music. There was no railway to Kalimpong then, and motor cars were rare curiosities. Mules were slow, but sure-footed. A fallen tree or a broken road from the monsoon rains caused only a brief delay while the animals scrambled round the obstacle. The 2 days on the road were filled with color and sound, birds and flowers, forests dense with life, and butterflies of the most brilliant kinds. Once, the crashing of wild elephants in the jungle thrilled me like the promise of adventure. At Kalimpong, I was warned about a one-armed Bhutia robber who haunted the Daphla. They said he lured travelers into talk and then stabbed them with a knife fixed to his wooden arm. "Caw, horrid man," my informants called him. But I carried a rifle for what I believed would be encounters with wild game, so the story did not trouble me. From Kalimpong, I went on again to the music of mule bells, past the rest house at Padong, where the caretaker was a white-bearded veteran of the mutiny, to the little town of Rhenok. There, I posted a letter and laughed when a local advised the postmaster not to keep it back to see what was inside. Then came the long climb to Datong, 12,000 feet high, a sudden change from the warmth of Bengal to winter air. A British sergeant telegraphist who had served with the mission to Lhasa in 1904 joined me. He told me of a recent murder in Pari, 50 miles away, and how word of it had spread before even the telegraph could bring the message, what he called the desert telegraph. I was lucky with weather at the Daphla. The sky was clear and the giant peaks stood like sentinels. Straight ahead, Chomolhari rose in perfect beauty, her virgin snows untouched. Many years later, in 1931, I climbed 20,000 feet up that mountain to the frozen lake at its foot on a pony. The Tibetans laughed to see it, but the little animal carried me all the way. After that first sight in 1908, I returned to Bengal with my head full of the Himalaya and the mystery of the lands beyond. In those days, travel in the mountains was usually tied to the pursuit of game. A journey without shikar seemed eccentric. My next visit came in 1910. I rode 3 days from Darjeeling to Gangtok, a trip that now takes only half a day by motor. From there, I moved north toward the frontier by way of the Tista Valley and Gyagong. Food was cheap. A sheep cost about 5 shillings. Near Tangu stood a high rock above the roaring Tista River, once used for executions. I heard of 13 Tibetan beggars who had been thrown from it for theft. The Bhutias, who lived there, though known for stern justice, were a fine people. Their clan had come from Bhutan 3 centuries earlier, proud and tall, they despised their Tibetan neighbors but carried themselves with dignity. They elected a local magistrate, the Pepun, and their assemblies reminded me of ancient Athens. Turning one's back on the Pepun was a serious insult, punished either by fine or by having to take his place. When I left Tangu, Buddhist monks walked before me, blowing the long trumpets of Tibet to drive away spirits. I camped at Gyagong in a dark gorge where great mountain eagles 10 feet from wingtip to wingtip circled the fires. Next day, I reached the frontier near Cho-Lammo Lake. The spot was warm and sheltered, the temperature only 10 degrees below zero. I nearly missed it, for my guide had lost the way, and I had almost resigned myself to sleeping in what they called one of the coldest and windiest places on earth. The following morning, a herd of Ovis Ammon, the great wild sheep of Central Asia, came to look down on my camp. Their leader's horns gleamed in the sun. I could only admire them through my field glasses, still recovering from a broken leg, the result of a pony's kick on the polo field. The animals seemed to sense I was harmless and watched without fear. That year, in Sikkim, I first heard tales of the abominable snowmen, creatures said to live on the edge of the snows and sometimes capture men to live among them. Colonel Waddell had mentioned such tracks in 1896 on the Dongkya La, which he thought were made by bears. But I never saw bears so high in Sikkim, though they roam elsewhere in the Himalaya. The mystery remains. When I returned to Bengal that October, I advised 2 colleagues, Bukhan and Kolas, on their own Sikkim journey. They crossed the Gichala the following year and later wrote of it in Blackwood's magazine. Both were gone within a few years, Bukhan dead, and Kolas killed in France in 1915. In 1912, I returned once more to the northern frontier and there met Captain Noel, who would later film the Everest expeditions. Even then he spoke of the great mountain and his hopes for it. That meeting marked in my mind the beginning of the modern age of Himalayan exploration. And so ended my memories of Sikkim in those older, quieter days.